Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. So excited every second Wednesday because we get to chat with authors that are referred to us from our friends over at Books Forward. So it's our Books and Authors show. And today we have Arlon Jay Staggs, who is joining us to talk about his book that went out yesterday. And it is called Leta Pearl's Love Biscuits. Yeah, if you like Southern fiction, this is going to be something you want to hear all about and then read about it. You can go to his website, arlonj.com, and that is linked in the episode notes. But I'm excited to hear all about this because I want to read it. Leta Pearl's Love Biscuits, because all I know is when some woman is cooking something in the South, it could be really good or something sinister, mysterious. Something's up. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, food definitely has a story in the South for sure.
It does. It does. And so I'm excited to hear about this because it sounds like such a fun story. It's got that Southern, there's always some kind of mysticism, or that's what I think is so great about Southern fiction is there's always this element that is just unexplainable. Does that make sense about the unexplainable?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, it's interesting because I didn't always have the magical biscuits in the story. When I first started writing the story, it was just the love story. And I was in a short story class, and the teacher of the class had us write ideas for a short story. And she had us write 10 what if statements. And one of my what if statements was, what if your grandmother's biscuits made men fall in love? And I had originally planned to write that as a short story. And by the way, my grandmother's name, she's passed away now, but it was Leta Pearl. And,
Wow. No way.
and so
That's a Southern name.
yeah, totally. So that's that's actually her name. She did not make magical love biscuits that I know of. But, when I added this kind of into the novel, it became a whole different story. And it sort of added this absurd, silly element that to me was part metaphor, part magic, but also allows the reader to kind of delve into some weighty topics without getting too bogged down, I guess. So it keeps
Yeah.
the
Yeah. You
story
have to have
light
some
and fun.
levity.
Yeah,
Yeah, some fun in there because that's the thing. So you were in a class, a short story class, but don't you also teach writing?
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I teach creative writing at a little place called San Diego Writers Inc. in San Diego. But then I also teach English comp at Northwest Florida State College. And this is my first year doing that. So I'm in the middle of my first semester teaching English comp, which has been a lot of fun. It's been a learning experience in itself for sure.
Wow, very cool. So you go between, is it all online or do you go back and forth to the places?
At the college, I'm in person, so on campus in
Yeah.
person. At San Diego Writers Inc., that's an online kind of writing workshop membership model. But I used to be on the board there, and it's a really cool organization funded by the Arts Council.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we used to live in San Diego and in your area of Florida. So
Oh,
it's
wow. I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so all those areas are like my stomping ground. So I'm like,
Oh, oh, okay.
yeah. So I love where you are right now. It's just one of the most beautiful regions to me of the
It's
country.
it's so beautiful. You of course you're familiar with the beaches, but when I met my husband, we would travel a lot, and we would travel to, oh my gosh, we went to Fiji, we went to Greece, we went to Montenegro, all these beautiful beaches,
Wow.
and they were beautiful. And every time we would go to a beach, he would say, don't you love this beach? Isn't this great? And I would be like, I mean, yeah, it's okay. And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, you've got to see the beaches in the panhandle of Florida. They're the best beaches in the world. So I finally convinced him to move here.
It's beautiful. And you have forest and bears and all kinds of
Yes,
stuff.
that's
Yes, you
right.
have a little bit of everything. I love it. And well, that's the unexpected. A lot of people do not get what Florida has on
That's
that
right.
area. And that's the thing, again, going into the fiction side, it's a beautiful area with a lot of unexpected things
Mhm.
in your region. So the unexpected, that to me is probably the coolest thing when you think about writing is to bring that into people like Alita Pearl's Love Biscuits, that's a little bit unexpected. And um, I think we need those kinds of little magical things because don't we hang on to myths and legends that are passed down because it's like old wives' tales don't really go away because of things
Yeah,
like that.
right. Well, and it's interesting you say that too, because, the South itself is really a contradiction. So I
Mhm.
think what I love about the South is just, you know, like you said, there's beaches and there's bears and there's pine trees and there's, the the Gulf,
Swamp.
the swamp. Yeah, the swamp and the alligators. It's brutal and it's beautiful. It's joyful and haunted. And,
Mm.
it's really a place where, and if you just think about the weight of our history, Southerners, we're fiercely proud of our history, but at the same time, we're deeply ashamed of it. And so
Mhm.
I think just that tension is what gives Southern stories just it's such a great place to start telling a story.
Bunch of gray area,
Yeah, for sure.
and
For sure.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's why magic kind of comes into it because it allows, like I said, for an entry point into just kind of delving with those hard topics.
Well, give everyone an overview of the story of the book, but don't give it all away.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's Leta Pearl's Love Biscuits came out on October 7th. It's funny. It's very heart forward, I would say. It's set in 1982 in a small town in Alabama. It follows a chemistry teacher, a young chemistry teacher named Trudy, and she's engaged to the next mayor of the town. And so everything is going fine for Trudy until the football coach who teaches across the hall has her kind of start to question her plan, and she starts to have feelings that maybe she doesn't have for her fiance. Of course, the town and her mother expect her to be the next first lady of the town. So there's a love triangle. There's small town secrets. There's a gossip columnist who thinks she runs the world. And
Don't they all though? Oh, come
oh,
on.
they
And they
do,
just
yeah,
the clothing, I mean, it's just and they somehow, they're the gossip columnists, they're the gossiper,
yeah.
right? But they somehow manage to get stories out of people. And they do it in this very sweet, like not to trust someone like that.
That's
Do
right.
isn't but
That's
don't
right.
you? There's
Yeah.
something that they do. Never have a cocktail with a gossip columnist.
That's true, that's true. Well, and in Leta Pearl's Love Biscuits, the gossip columnist, her name is Barbara. She's also married to the owner of the newspaper, so she can say whatever she wants, and there's no repercussion. So it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun kind of weaving in all of the conversations that I heard from these Southern women as I was growing up, and the ones that would make me laugh, um, and so it was a lot of fun writing about
Mm.
these women who
Is that where
essentially
it
raised
started?
me.
Where was this what started the book? What started the book? Was it the love story? And then you started drawing on all these stories you've heard and
Yeah,
conversation?
that's a great question. So my parents, and this will give one scene away in the book, but it's okay because I give this scene away to everybody. There's a story that my parents always told, and they met in a high school. My dad was a football coach, my mom was a teacher. She taught across the hall from him, and that's how they met. And I just kind of always loved that story. Of course, they didn't meet in the 80s, they met in the 60s. And my mom was a single mom with my older brother back then. And they told this story about how my dad, on I think it was the first day of school, he was throwing a pep rally in his class across the hall and disturbing my mom's class. And so she went over there and she was going to get the kids quiet. And it turns out that he was in his room leading the pep rally himself. And so they had sort of this kind of tension from the beginning where he was kind of the non-serious coach teacher, as the coaches were when they were forced to teach a class. And then my mom was kind of this buttoned up, serious science teacher. But I just always loved that story. And I thought, that would be a cute meet cute for a romantic comedy. And so that's where the story was born. And that scene is in the novel. And I don't know, I just sort of asked those what if questions like, well, what if she was married or, engaged to marry the mayor? And what if her mother really wanted wanted her to marry the mayor? What if that? And then what if her mother made these magical
Uh-oh.
biscuits? And it just kind of grew from there. And so there is one scene in the book that's a little bit, I guess, biographical, but that's about it. Most everything else is fictionalized.
Well, yeah, because, you're not going to be the gossip person, but you're still gossiping. You are.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Writers find all the gossip. They do.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
and it's interesting. I don't know how many writers write like this. This is how it played out for me. when I was writing the book, oftentimes I would write pages and pages of just dialogue, just two characters talking to each other. And then I would go back and sort of edit that dialogue and fill in the gaps with the prose. But what I hope is that it's a novel with a lot of fun dialogue because it's really a dialogue forward.
Mm,
Um, and I heard the characters sort of talking to each other as the story unfolded in my head. So yeah, and it was
that's
mostly these conversations between women from the South.
well, okay, so dialogue forward is not the easiest thing to do whatsoever, I think, in a novel. That you have to have skills, right? It's like you can't just keep going, she said, he said, I can't even say it.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's not,
right.
I don't think it's that easy, personally.
Dialogue, yeah, most writers struggle a lot with dialogue. It comes a little naturally for me. And maybe that's because I hear these voices so clearly in my head, and I think
Don't go around saying that.
that's I should be careful, right? Yeah. It is. I can't tell you how many yoga classes my head was just full of like these characters talking to one another. And I did start to believe I might be crazy. But I think I wouldn't say that the book is dialogue heavy, but I would say that it is dialogue forward, like I
Mm.
mentioned, where the dialogue really and I think maybe that might be a very Southern story kind of thing because you've got to hear those Southern characters talk to each other.
Yeah. Now, do you think this will become a movie? Like, would you want, because it sounds to me like it would be a killer movie too. And you know what? Because it makes sense because of the gossip. And it's,
Uh,
small towns, and I've lived in them. If you don't tell people what the news is, they are definitely making it up for you. And what somebody suspects
right.
will become the truth. Or, and we all like to like, well, what do you think they're doing? Well, I think they're doing, come on, it is fun. We all know that, right? We're not supposed to gossip, but it's human nature. So I get it. But for the readers, like they're the fly on the wall. So they want to
Yeah.
hear that dialogue. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right, right, for sure. Yeah, I think you raise an excellent point. And in a small town, I mean, gossip kind of that's what drives the culture.
The small talk leads right to gossip. There's no in between. The small talk is the polite way of going, I'm going in here, but I'm going to be nice first. Let's talk
Yeah,
about the weather. And yeah, it's a little hot for her to be wearing that if she's, you know what. Is she Carrie?
yeah. Well, and you can always put them on the prayer list, right? So you can always put people on the
Uh,
prayer list and let that be, we need to pray for her. So, and here's why we need to pray for her. I'm not gossiping. I'm just putting her on the
Same.
prayer list.
That's right. And she's so special. That's it. So, but yeah, would you want to see this as a movie? Because it sounds like
Um,
it.
well, I mean, absolutely. I think any author would love to see their work on the screen. But I will tell you, pictured it as I was writing it more of a stage play. And maybe that's
Yeah.
because the dialogue was so in my head. Because I love the live theater. I think it's
Yeah, me
probably
too.
the most vulnerable art form that there is, especially musical theater. And so I would love to see it on the stage. That would thrill me to no end, but
Mhm.
absolutely, yes, on the screen would be great.
Oh my gosh, but a theater play, that would be fun.
Yeah, for
That would be fun to do and doable.
yeah, yeah,
That's doable. Dialogue is, that's doable for good actors to really get and the accents, you're right. To hear that accent. Now,
mhm.
okay, you talk about musical theater. Would you put a music playlist together for the book? That would
Wouldn't that be great? I haven't thought about putting a music playlist for this, but that would be a lot of fun. I would love to. I don't know, I could see maybe a Casey Musgraves, or I'm not sure. She
you're
she
gonna have
definitely
to
comes
do
to
some
mind.
southern songs there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you got a love triangle too, which there's a lot of songs on love triangles, which
Oh, for sure.
and they're real. The most
Yeah,
unsuspecting people suddenly have that happen. And you're
yeah.
not supposed to. You will have to go on the prayer list because it's
That's
naughty.
right.
You're not supposed to. And then you're gonna have to confess, you know.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Yeah,
yeah,
it
and
happens.
I would say that's the central theme of the story, and I think it's a universal theme. I think everybody who's ever been in love has been there. Am I in love for the right reasons? Is this really love? What happens when that sort of physical attraction fades away, and the tingle stops, and the choice begins whether to stay
Yeah.
or not. So I love that dynamic of love,
Mm.
really.
Yeah. Now, do you see this becoming a book club kind of thing where
I
you
think it
could
would be
read it?
great for a book club. I
Yeah.
think it would be great for a family to read it, like, like, as a holiday book, so give you something to talk about over the holiday table, and I think it appeals to a lot of different ages. It's not so literary that your teenagers are gonna not wanna read it, and it's not so simple that the seasoned reader is gonna be turned off by it, so I hope that I hit a sweet spot in that
Yeah.
regard.
Well, you know what? This kind of love story, like you're talking about with your parents, right? It gives people something to talk about over the holiday season. Like, how did you guys meet? How did that happen? And sometimes in relationships, you need to remember what started it all. Because
Yeah,
if things are going south, right, we stand, I mean, our bodies do this naturally. We stand like we go negative before positive, right?
yes,
And so something like this is a reminder of there was this positive place that was fun, it was exciting, it was scary, all of those things that come with love and attraction. And there was a reason why you connected. And if you can go
yeah.
back, and unless you're really with someone who's like a criminal or something like that, right? Which happens. It just I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, um, then you put them on the prayer list. But it reminds people to go back to those places and maybe feel better
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is it kind of validates love. It validates kind of that choice that we make to give ourselves to someone else, to another human being.
Yeah, trust and all that stuff, man. That's like,
Yeah.
and who bakes what in their families? Like those family stories. That's what I think is so important about the holidays is to get those stories from our
Ye
grandparents and people like that, friends, and just get those stories out because they get forgotten, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and family is so messy, and, I don't know if it was like this for you, but when I was growing up, I thought my family was the only messy one, and we were secretly messy because our
Oh yeah.
public persona was we had it all together, but behind closed doors, it's very messy, and I think it's unfortunate that you have to I think at least most of us, you have to become an adult before you realize, everybody's family is messy. So I hope
Messy or messed up? Which one?
Yeah,
I like messy's much better. That's a good word.
for sure, and I hope that that's reflected in the book too, that people can read it and be like, "Oh, yes, we this family's messy just like mine."
Yeah, and allows us to be human.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
human, because we need to remember that because we ain't perfect.
No.
I
And
try. I know, I know. So did you think you were gonna write a book in life? I know this is your debut one, but you're no stranger to writing, obviously, and teaching it. But did you ever think, "Hey, novels are a way I'm gonna go?" Is that as even as a kid, did you like writing? Because obviously you're in it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wasn't a big writer as a kid. In fact, I kinda struggled through English classes and I mean, I made okay grades, I just didn't like it a whole lot,
Mhm.
and it was when I went to law school that I really sort of fell in love with writing and came to know the power of word choice, forming an argument and a paragraph and, even a sentence that moves a conversation forward, and so I think when I really fell in love with words and reading and writing was when I was in law school, so pretty late in life. And I did have it as a goal to kind of write books in retirement, and I had this dream that I would teach college and write novels one day, but after I've retired from, like, the corporate world. And I was having a conversation with my husband, Drew, about that, one Christmas. We were talking about the upcoming year and our goals and kinda what we wanted to accomplish in the next few years, and I mentioned that. I said, one day when I retire, I wanna write books and teach college." And, he said, "Well, why don't you just do that now?" And this was back in 2017, and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, we're doing pretty well financially. If you wanted to just pursue this now, you can." And so I did. I sort of quit
Right on.
my corporate
Good
work and
husband.
yeah, I know.
Sweet.
We've been all in. Of course, that adds a lot of pressure to it too because I spent, gosh, 7 years sort of learning how to write a novel, and
Mhm.
here we are at the culmination of that. And so it's a little bit do or die time now, but I'm excited about it. It's great to hold the book in my hand and just see
That's amazing, isn't it?
that it happened. And it's very
Because
fulfilling. And yeah,
it's a lot of work. And I think like even coming on the podcast and stuff, right? It's aside from the creative zone, and there's so
yeah,
much that happens after. And so the writing part is sometimes bloody and messy and painful, annoying, you know.
yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
there's those moments of pure joy. I mean, it's messy. Messy is my word of the day. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
I'm gonna
welcome.
use that all the rest of the day. I am. But it is hard.
Mm,
And then like suddenly like be on a podcast, go on a book site and go here, go do that. And then like you're in that zone of writing too, you know? And then you have editors, and then you have that whole like this that's a long journey for a
yeah,
book, right? That
it
all that
is.
work that goes into it, and it never
Yeah,
ends, really.
yeah. And I think one of the hurdles that I had early on was, I knew how to write as a lawyer, and then I didn't spend very much time in my career as a lawyer. It lasted maybe about 3 years. It wasn't something I liked to do, but then I went into advertising as a writer, and I was a copywriter for about 20 years for in different various industries. Um, and so, I always thought of myself as a writer, but then when I tried to write long form, it was a much different game. It was almost not even the same. And so I had to kind of go take some classes, and I went back to get my, Master of Fine Arts in creative writing and kind of learn what is a novel. So that's been a lot of fun too, I think.
Well, I think what that helps you with the dialogue part too, like you're talking about, is when you're copywriting, you have to get to stuff quickly. You can't
Oh
go
yeah.
on, right? And
Right.
the impact, the power that like advertising this color, that color. So you have color and stuff like that that helps you,
Yeah.
that goes away when it's like a page or a Kindle. It's like,
Right. Well,
zero,
and
you
you
know?
can also edit as you go because you're not writing
Yeah.
85,000 words, you're writing 8 words, and you can edit those 8 words all day long and then finally have a perfect ad written by the end of the day. And so one thing I had to train myself to do is allow a sentence to be really crappy and move on, knowing that I
See,
could come back later and edit that sentence, because otherwise I would just spend all day on one sentence like I was used to doing as a copywriter.
yeah, we don't have that luxury. It's a luxury,
No,
just
not at all.
in general. No, I'm like, no. But it is interesting how so many lawyers end up writing books. So many lawyers write novels, which I
Yeah,
find, and there is the power of the pen. It's understanding the fine details, but knowing how to take the fine details and put them in one sentence that's impactful.
yeah.
And there's a creativity. I mean, I think lawyers, they've got amazing brains, good
It
lawyers, you know?
While ultimately practicing law was not necessarily the career for me, one of the best things I ever did was go to law school, and I think it teaches a person in a certain way of thinking, sort of that Socratic method. And um, eh, you know, I love what it did to my brain, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
That's
And
cool.
really, that is what you do in law school. You write. I mean, that is pretty much, if I had
Uh,
to boil law school down to one word, it is writing for sure.
wow, that is interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, you're the first person who's answered that like that way.
Really? Yeah.
Because I've always wondered what is going on with all these lawyers,
Yeah.
but and they always write good stuff,
Yeah.
and always go on some, and there's always this other little. You know what I think it is there's this other thing, like, Leta's, love pearl, Leta's love biscuits, right?
Yeah.
There's something like that. There's always this other element, and I wonder because in lawsuits, there's always this weird thing that'll appear somewhere that
Mm.
had no place, and they kind of like, I don't know what, there's like a category term kind of thing, like it's like the act of God on insurance things, that
Oh,
you go, really, thank you, a tree fell on my car and God did that. Oh, thank you, God, for that.
right.
So but in law there's always this there's like a category for like out of nowhere things. I don't know
Yeah.
what.
Well, and you're learning to compile evidence. So I think in a novel, the only difference is you get to create all the evidence and create the that perfect scenario, right? So you've got all these characters and all these players, and you can use what you know about evidence and put that
So,
into a story.
man, that's like the ultimate gossip. Like, if you think of it, right?
Yeah.
This is like, you've got this going on. I
Yeah.
gotta beat this. This is exciting. Now, okay, so now it's set in Alabama, so you're not far from Alabama. Now, did you come from there where you
Yeah,
live?
yeah. No, I was born and raised in Florence, Alabama, which is North Alabama, up on the
Yeah.
Tennessee River. And so I had Florence is a beautiful town. It's a great place to be from. I still love it. It's way cooler now than when I lived there. They've done a lot to like the downtown area. And then the University of North Alabama is there, and they've really kind of created this very cool college town vibe. So it's a great place to be from. The and I pictured a lot of Florence as I was writing the novel, but I think I had just sort of scenes of the quintessential small town in my head when I was writing it, just with the the downtown with the courthouse and the jewelry store. The father of the protagonist owns the jewelry store downtown, and the department store.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, sort of bringing that sense of place into the novel, and then also trying to remember what life was like back in 1982, because I was not even 10 years old then, so I had
Mm.
to sort of remember what that was like too.
These are so much fun. Whenever an author writes about the '80s, I'm like, cool, bring it. This is so much fun because I was growing up then. It's like, I think we had like the most fun and then it all went crazy. I think that
Yeah.
was like such a good decade of so many crazy, weird things that happened too. So it was a transformative decade, I think, in the world.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot of fun to write about too, and the one challenge I had was I had to set it in 1982 because I wanted, it being a book set in Alabama, I wanted Bear Bryant to make a cameo appearance. So there's a nod to Bear Bryant, but I needed him to be alive, and he died in '83. And the thing that I learned was most of the really cool '80s stuff, not all of it, but most of it happened sort of '84 and later. So I would have these great ideas of stuff to put in the book, and I can't tell you how many times my editor came back to me and it was like, "That song wasn't released until January '83. You're gonna have to find another song," and I have to go back.
This playlist has to happen.
That's right.
Just the '80s music, part of
Yeah,
it. Come
yeah.
on. Yeah, yeah, the '80s. Wow. Where girls wore plastic shoes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, come on, it's fun, though. I
Mm,
have nothing against it all. I think we need to go back there. If bell bottoms can be in for the forever, something from the '80s should stick. Maybe it is the
let's
hair, right? And I know, it was just so
yeah.
much fun. It was bright, it was colorful, and then
Mhm.
grunge happened. They said, like, "Screw that, you're doing this now." You
Yeah.
know? So interesting, but I think to write it, that had to be fun to just put yourself into that. So, did you put like are you visually stimulated writing-wise to be set in a scene? Like, do you have photos from the town from back then to just kinda keep you there, or is it just going on the feel of it?
Yeah, I just mostly went on the feel of it. I do keep a big whiteboard in my office, and it's like right over to the left of my desk, and I can kind of look up to it. But I keep my outline there, and it's in dry erase marker, so I can kind of change things as I go. But I try to stick to, I try to stick to where that outline is having me go. But visually, I mostly just rely on my head, and then those conversations in my head that I'm hearing.
See, we're going right back to the conversations in
Yeah,
your
I
head.
know they're always there.
Mhm. Yeah, all those voices in the head, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you're writing something else today? Birdie told me.
I am. Yeah, I'm working on my next novel. I've got an outline of maybe about 15,000 words in, which is not that much. It's not even a quarter in. But it's another story based in Alabama. It's sort of, what can I tell you about it? It's about two childhood best friends who grew up in Alabama, and they find out that they're the heirs to a quite significant fortune from an old lady who's passing away. And she's put a stipulation that if they're not both married by the time she dies, they don't get the money. So they kind of rush to the altar to try to, get the money. Um, and chaos ensues. So that's what I can tell you about it right now. And we'll see how much of that
Beautiful.
sticks.
What did you do?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love this. Well, this is so exciting. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, the book is out now. You got to go get it and be like me and go start reading. Leta Pearl's Love Biscuits is out now. So by Arlon Jay Staggs. Go to arlonj.com. The links are in the episode notes. Hope you enjoy it. And let's make a playlist, man. We got to do it.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.